Hey everybody, it's me again. So, today, now, we're going to talk about drugs. This is going to be a pretty interesting topic for me. I'll explain everything as we go, but for now, I'm going to start out with some statistics. And if these don't bother you, I don't really know what would bother you. Just so you guys know, this isn't gonna be me being an asshole or anything. I just want to talk about drugs, about what they do, about if you're on drugs, then I want you to know that I don't believe that you're just a shit person, that you're just terrible, unless you're intentionally doing them and ruining everyone's lives around you purposely. I mean, then you're a shitty person. But anyway, I'm gonna throw some statistics out at you guys, and I'd like to get some feedback on this video. I want to see how you guys feel about it, and tell me some stories. Tell me your success stories with quitting drugs and your sobriety and everything. So, I wrote down a list of questions that I had that I wanted to talk about in this video, and did some research. And the first one, of course, is how many people in the United States are current drug users. Well, my search turned up pretty vague, but as of 2013, there was a pretty big increase from 2010 to 2013. As of 2013, there are 24.6 million illicitly using drugs that are the age 12 and older. It kind of bothers me to think of the word 12 or older, because that includes 12-year-olds, and it's such a young age, such a time of innocence, or should be such a time of innocence. And instead of playing out in the yard or playing their video games or doing whatever they do, they're they're using drugs. And that sucks, because they're just kids. And so after I checked for users of general drugs, I also checked for users of hard drugs. Heroin, hallucinogens, inhalants, those kind of things. There was 3.6 million. That are 12 or older. And that sucks too, because I don't even want to think that there's anyone that's age 12 that's using heroin. There is, of course, but I don't like to think about that kind of stuff. But I decided to do some research, and this is what I got. I asked for it. Then, of course, I wanted to check the imprisoned or incarcerated, and there are 102,000 approximately that are in federal prison over drugs. Federal prison. We're not talking sitting in jail over some marijuana. We're talking federal prison. And then there are almost 220,000 people in state jails or state prisons over drugs. I'm going to do some math really fast. That is, if you think of it this way, a drug user, likely, I'm just going to say that every drug user on my list has both their parents. Now, grant you, most of them probably don't have both of them. One or the other, or both, could be gone. But if you think, if all of them had their parents, that's 660,000 people affected by their drug using. Because not only does it affect you, It affects your parents, your siblings, and I'm not even going to add all that in there because that's just going to be an outrageous number of people. There are so many people affected by drugs every day, and it's sad to think that millions and millions of people are affected by such a terrible thing. There is an estimated 15,000 rehabs in the United States as of, I want to say 2013. Some of the statistics are kind of old, I know. But 15,000. There are over 24.6 million users, and there's only 15,000 rehabs. So, how are all of these users going to be getting help if there's not enough rehabs to accommodate for them? That's what I want to know. And then, of course, I tried to look up the statistics on the people that say, well, I grew up in the house where mom was always drunk and dad always had a joint in his hand, or, you know, something. I know that's not everybody's situation, but where people grew up in the environment, how many of those started using because they were in the environment, and how many of those rose above that and stayed away from it. I didn't really come up with anything on that one. I'll still have to be doing more research on that. So, after doing all this research, it's kind of eye-opening, I guess. I was a drug user a couple times in my life. Once, whenever I was younger, I liked to take Valiums and different types of pills to get through my day, was my excuse. To run away from my problems was more like it. And then I was also a hard drug user. I made both of those statistics. I used methamphetamines for around 3 months. And a year and a half ago, I quit. That was probably the single hardest thing I've ever had to do. And it was so hard for me because I'd screwed up so badly that I pretty much pushed everyone I ever cared about away. I met my husband a year and a half ago by some crazy chance. Never met him before. And he is, and my daughter, of course, they are the only reason that I got off of drugs. And I'm kind of a control freak, so doing drugs is essentially giving up every ounce of control that you have. You don't have control over your body. You don't have control over your emotions. You don't even have control over your actions sometimes, depending on your drug of choice. Now, I know that that's a lot to take in at once, so go ahead, take your time and really let that sink in. I used methamphetamine. I binge used for 3 months. This is the only time I've ever used really hard drugs. It's the only time I ever will. Or would. I got into a rough spot in my life. I'm not going to really go into the super fine details. Let's just say there was an ex of mine who I thought hung the damn moon. I thought he was just the best thing that had ever happened to me, and that I just didn't know how I could be without him. It just didn't make sense to me. He went to jail, got out, we reconnected, and he started selling again. And on a normal day, I can just say no. I can be fine with not touching anything. I had done it for years. I didn't want it, didn't need it. But then curiosity piqued. What was so special about this drug that everybody was doing it? I mean, he sold a ton of people. So I wanted to know what it was. Why was it so special? It seemed like I was losing grip with him for a little while, so I wanted to do the thing that he was doing, so maybe he would care about me more. I don't know. And it got me in a lot of trouble. I didn't go to jail, but I suffered for 3 months because meth isn't just one of those drugs that gives you sores and stuff. I mean, I don't have sores all over my face. I definitely don't look like I used it. But I lost 50, 60 pounds. I was too thin. I looked like shit. I felt like shit. And this shit's not cheap. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. I broke every dime that I had. I worked a job just to support my habit. And while I thought I had it all under control and I could function normal in the society and I could do anything, I worked my job for as long as I wanted to. And then one day I just said, screw it, I quit. And then decided that it was a good idea just to stay at home all day, do drugs, ruin my life, push away my family, push away my friends. And I think the worst part of all is that I felt so good about it whenever I was doing it. I was so confident about it. It wasn't that bad. I could stop at any time. But when I was down to my last $50 and I lost it, I went out, got my dope, was headed back home, and I lost it. I still don't know what the fuck happened to it to this day. I came back, got all the way back to where I was staying, and we searched my car for 3 hours. In the car, around the car, in my pockets, in every possible place that I could have possibly put it, in the trunk, under my seats. I almost took the seats out of my car just to make sure, just to be sure. And I don't know what clicked inside my head, but that was the day that I stepped back, I looked at everything around me, and I just felt sorry for myself. I was looking at myself for the first time with a clear head. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? I was coming down, for one thing. I was coming down hard. And I was freaking out because I didn't have my fix. And I did. I searched my car for 3 hours. I pushed away everyone that loved me. And somehow, maybe a week or two after I had quit, I met my now husband. And somehow, he made me never want to touch it again. He made me never want to pick it up again. And I don't ever want to. My body will fight with me. It tortures me. And there are certain days where it's all I can taste. And oh, it's bad. Ruins food completely. But the last year and a half of my life has been a roller coaster. It's been hard. But I'm proud to not be dependent on a drug anymore. Now, there was this big ordeal going around, some post that went viral, and someone on my friends list had shared it, of course, and I typed out a big long message about how no one truly understands what it's like to be on drugs until they're on drugs. And you know what? I hope nobody understands. I hope that the people who do understand don't have to deal with what they were going through anymore, or what they are going through. I hope you guys get help. And I used to believe, no, just say no. You didn't have to start doing that. Well, there's a lot of things in people's lives that influence their want to start using drugs. Mine was my annoying, desperate need to be connected with a foolish little idiot who didn't deserve 5 seconds of my attention. And some people, it's the death of a family member. Some people, it's the loss of a loved one, someone moving away, a breakup. I mean, it can be something huge, it can be something small. Sometimes you just don't know somebody like you think you do. No one expected me to start using drugs. I didn't expect to start using drugs. The person I woke up and looked at in the mirror every day wasn't me. It was a much more depressed version of me. I battled anxiety and depression and all that stuff my entire life. And it's a struggle sometimes, but now I've got my family behind me, and I've got my friends behind me, and my husband, my daughter. There are a lot of things that play into how someone gets clean and how someone stays clean. Oh, it's really easy to put down a drug. Honestly. People do it all the time. They throw the drug out, that I don't want to do it anymore. I'm not going to touch it again, ever. But I guarantee you that at least half of them, 6 months later, they got it picked back up. A year later, they've got it picked back up. The first 3 months were the worst with the detox, of course. And then it was all smooth sailing for the longest time till I hit that 1 year mark. And I don't know what it is, but the chemistry in my body changed. I felt ill for 2 months. My taste buds were off. Everything was horrible. The first year was the hardest. Now that I've gotten past that 1 year mark, it's going to be a struggle for the rest of my life. But I know that it's all worth it. Drugs have destroyed so many lives that for every one person that starts using drugs, there's at least 10 people that get hurt by that. So if you want to if you want to look at my statistics, there's at least half the country is hurting right now because they know somebody that's on drugs and they just wish they could help them. But the sad thing is that some people just don't want help. They don't want to stop. They're happy with the life they're living. They're happy doing drugs and going out and getting drunk or getting high or doing whatever. And that sucks. Because not only are you selfish, but you're hurting everyone around you. And eventually there's going to come a time in your life, maybe on your deathbed, where you really stop and you think, damn, I wish I had somebody by my side. Because by the time you're done, you think what? You think your friends, your homies, whatever, you think they care about you? No. All they care about is either making money off of you or getting dope from you. And that's how it is. If you do drugs and you have friends that do drugs, those ain't your friends. You think them still going to be your friends after you stop getting high? After you stop getting drunk? Nah. Because they're still going to be getting high and they're still going to be getting drunk without you. Because they don't care about you. Nothing's going to change that. I know that for 100% fact, it's always a choice whether you go back or not. Starting might not always be an easy choice, but it's still a choice. And you gotta figure out what's important in your life. So before you pick up those drugs, before you ruin your life, before you destroy somebody's heart that cares about you, think. What would happen if I started doing this? I didn't think about that. I didn't care. I was in a dark time in my life. So, no, I didn't think about any of that. I didn't care about any of that. But after I started, I knew what I'd done. Another thing that everyone needs to understand is this not just underprivileged, white trash, stupid pieces of shit that start doing drugs. My parents own 4 businesses. I own my own business. I used to own my own business. I actually own 2 businesses. I'm not stupid. I just don't make the best decisions sometimes. Or I didn't used to. And you know what? People do it every day. It's not underprivileged that starts doing drugs. It's not just white trash that does drugs. It's not just one person that does drugs. Or one type of person. Everybody has a chance of starting drugs. It's just if you decide to or not. And to everybody that is watching this that has been through trying to help somebody or has been through losing a friend because of drugs or giving up on somebody because of drugs, I know for a fact that when I was going through my phase, near the end of it, all I wanted was someone to reach out to me. Sometimes, and especially with people like me, I don't have the best communication skills. I didn't know how to talk to people about my problem. I didn't know how to seek help. I mean, of course I knew how, I just didn't know what to say. Hey, I got a bad meth problem. Can you guys help me? What? It's hard. But you can be the difference in somebody's life. You could stop somebody from using drugs tomorrow. Today. But you can't if you don't want to. Now, people will say, well, I don't want to get drugged down that path. Now, that's when your decision making comes in. It's your choice whether you start using drugs or not whenever you're not in an influenced situation. If it's just your friend being like, hey, dude, you want to try this? Be smarter than the average bear. No, man, drugs aren't cool. There's nothing about drugs that's cool. There's nothing about getting hooked on something that you depend on to be cool. There's nothing cool about needing a drug to be able to feel. And by the way, marijuana is a drug. It's a hallucinogen. Makes your head all spacey, calms you down, makes you sleepy, makes you hungry. It's a drug. It's got drug properties in it. It's illegal. Just because it's illegal in some states. Just because your friends do it, just because everybody's doing it, just because it's socially acceptable, does not make it any less of a drug. I don't want to hear anything about, well, my brother's cousin's nephew's aunt's best friend got put in jail over some weed that's so petty. No, you're petty. Whoever is petty, the best friend of the aunt's uncle's nephew, whoever, they're petty. Why are you going to do a drug that's illegal? I couldn't imagine what would happen to you. Oh, well, weed, there's never been a death reported of weed. No, I'm sure there hasn't. In fact, I've never heard of a death caused by weed. Congratulations. It's still illegal. We need to be raising up the next generation to be decent, good, happy human beings. And that doesn't start with drugs. It doesn't start with alcohol. It doesn't start with weed. Weed is just as much a drug as anything else. It may not be as hard of a drug, but it's still a drug. It alters your state of mind. By definition, it's a drug. And you know what else it is? It's an illegal drug in my state. Anyway. If you just don't do it, you can't get in trouble for it. Is getting high worth going to jail? Is getting high worth all this shit that it causes? I mean, honestly. And to those of you, I'm not going to get caught. I'm too smart for that. Shit. I mean, I get on Facebook and there's some people that just downright announce it. They're like, if I didn't smoke every day, you're just asking to go to jail. I'm ranting. If you think you're smarter than the law, and if you think you're above the law, then you need a reality check. Because you're not. You can be put in jail just like anybody else. Anyway, I guess 30 minutes is plenty long enough. I'll talk to y'all later.